Sam, we're back for another episode.
Oh, we are, Kate. I don't know if I want to be back today.
Yes, because you and I have been chatting. We actually did something that we haven't done since we launched this podcast, and we are now, this is our 10th episode that we're recording. And we actually went back today and looked at the stats of how our podcast is tracking, how many downloads and so on. And um, we noticed that our most downloaded episode obviously was the first episode because that was the exciting launch and everyone wants to sort of hear that first inaugural episode. And then we noticed that our second highest downloaded episode was the one on menopause and how hormones affect our ability to do business. And you were saying, Sam, that everyone you speak to says that that's their favorite episode that they've listened to so far.
Yes, I do get a lot of comments about the menopause episode, which is really, really interesting. And I think, Kate, as much as people want to know about marketing and money and all of those sorts of things, let's face it, us talking about menopause is that there could not be any more direct link between women and business, could there?
That's right. Yeah. And it drove home the message that you and I already know, but sometimes you need to be reminded that actually what people are after is vulnerability and the reality of what it's like to be a woman in business. And so we can talk strategy and tactics till the cows come home, but those episodes don't get nearly as many downloads as the ones where we get real and vulnerable and talk about behind the scenes stuff. And
yes.
And since that was
today, this is why I want to run away and hide today, but I'm not going to, because today we are going to once again pull the curtains back and talk about all the things that, that stab us in the heart and hurt in business.
Yeah. So, you and I have decided to get vulnerable today, share our big insecurities as coaches, as business owners. And yes, feels very scary. And I feel a little bit of a thing in my throat where I just don't want to speak. But, and especially after the last episode we recorded, we had such a beautiful flowing conversation, only to realize at the half-hour mark that the record button was not on and we had totally missed the entire conversation. And it was such a good, as always happens, such a good conversation. We were devastated.
Yes.
Yeah. But so here we go. We are going to share what it's really like as a business owner, the fears, the challenges, which we've touched on, but we haven't been fully vulnerable before around the realities of running a business as a woman. And so we were just talking, Sam, because you and I branched out on our own independently last June. So it's been about a year. It's been just over 12 months since you and I have become independent business owners in our own right after being part of the Fempire franchise. And what it's like, starting out on your own, starting afresh again and feeling like you're going through that valley of death again. And both you and I should be incredibly proud, and we are proud of how far we've come, but there's also all those insecurities that come with starting again and building up your platform, your content, your audience, your message, all the assets that you use to run your business. You and I both just said beforehand, we both need to overhaul our websites again.
Yes.
We have the podcast info. So there's always stuff that needs to be done. But of course, you've always got to have your eye on the revenue generation as well. And I was just mentioning to you that last year, well, I'm in another big fear space at the moment where I've invested quite a significant sum of money in mentoring with a mastermind group, with business coaching, because I know we talked about this in the last episode, that elevating my thinking and my approach is I know what's required for me to go to the next level. And last year I did the same. When I first branched out on my own, I invested in a very expensive business coach and a system. And so I was ringing bank loan brokers and trying to get, help, because I knew that I needed to, well, I don't know if I needed to, and this is the thing where our beliefs come in the way, but I felt like I needed to get really good business mentoring to give me direction, and I needed to have some kind of special tool in my toolkit, and so then we invest all this money in order to grow that next level. And those investments did pay off, and I've been generating good revenue, but now I'm in the space again where I've invested again in mentoring to go the next level. And when you start seeing your cash flow buffer getting lower and lower, and then for whatever reason, um, you know, I discovered a glitch in my booking form. So I realized that people haven't been able to book discovery calls with me for about 3 or 4 weeks, and I lost 2 or 3 big leads at least in that time. I managed to recover 2 of them, and many others that were interested. And that was just so heartbreaking to hear that people had been reaching out for help, and I just hadn't responded because there was a glitch in my system.
No.
Yeah, and I was wondering why it was so quiet. And so stuff like this happens. And then, as a result, the pipeline starts to get low. And then you decide to invest in things. And you and I are both investing in virtual help to grow our businesses. So we end up in this space of fear where, you sort of think, oh my goodness, have I overinvested? Is this going to pay off? And then I go through, in the last year, I've gone through phases where I get into flow and I think, this is good. I'm doing this. I'm paying myself a good salary, decent enough for the first year. And then you go through another period where it all seems to just dry up and you don't know what you're doing. And then it triggers all your insecurities again of, what the hell am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. How can I tell other people what to do when I don't even know what I'm doing? Yeah. So, yeah.
I can totally relate to this, Kate. I had an email from somebody, it was last week, and it's embarrassing because, I'm sitting there telling people that I'm a specialist in helping them automate and systemize their business. And then I get the really embarrassing email. Hey, Sam, just wanted to let you know that I filled in the form on your website to download an ebook.
Mm-hmm.
The ebook never came. I never got any emails from you until I just got this one today. So 2 weeks had gone by, and they had got an email from me, from my CRM, confirming if they wanted to be added to my newsletter. So nothing for 2 weeks, and then, hey, jump on my newsletter, why don't you? So embarrassing. But like you, how many other people filled in that form on my website and have now disappeared, and they're not on my list or anything because there was a glitch in the system that I didn't know about?
Yeah. It's extremely frustrating.
It's frustrating. And again, and like you say, it's the imposter syndrome sinks in because it's like, I'm supposed to be the one that's the so-called expert in this, and I haven't even got my own system working properly.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to tell other people how to do this when I haven't got it figured out myself? And it's not that I didn't have it figured out. We all have those moments, don't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And those systems are finicky, like one little glitch, and that's what I realized. I hadn't set one setting up properly, which meant the whole process didn't flow. And then, and I'm still in the process of getting the calendar reminders sorted out because something went wrong there. So I'm on the phone to customer support, and all of that takes time. And in the meantime, you're wondering, am I losing leads? Or, so getting those systems up and running is so critical, but it takes time. And you and I have had to, again, develop and establish all our systems again. And I've stepped over to a new CRM, which is meant to be better at managing leads and the customer journey, and yet I've had all these problems with it. So it is very, very time consuming, very frustrating. And like you say, how many people have I missed? And the imposter syndrome is real. And I was telling you just before that I had someone very publicly on LinkedIn, when I was sharing something about marketing, say that I had no authority to speak on the subject because I hadn't done a marketing degree at university. And you can imagine all the insecurities that triggered in me, because that's exactly what I've always been thinking. Who am I to teach people this stuff? I was a scientist and an engineer. Now I'm talking about marketing. Who am I to talk about this? And
Haven't they seen Good Will Hunting?
oh no, well, remind me, what do you mean about that? Because I haven't seen that movie for so long. I've forgotten what it's
Oh,
about.
well, in Good Will Hunting, Matt Damon's character is the genius, and he knows how to solve these phenomenal complex mathematical equations that the professors at the university, sort of
Mm,
struggle with. So, look, I went to uni as well, Kate. We and you've done certainly invested a lot more in education than I have, as in tertiary education.
mm,
I don't want to ever discredit any of us that have gone down that path and do have degrees, PhDs,
mm,
doctorates, all of those sorts of things. But I also don't think we should ever discredit experience, real world experience. And I think
absolutely.
there is a big disparity between formal education and experience. And until those two things can be married, I don't think either side can say, well, you what you're doing is worthless because you don't have this.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge gap, and yeah, between what university teaches and what the reality is. And I remember someone saying to me when I they learned I had a PhD, and they said, "Oh, poor homeless and desperate." And I thought, isn't that funny? Like, and there's some thread of truth in there, because as a PhD, you are so specialist in one very specific niche area of knowledge. And when you get out into the real world, it's about generalism and knowing how to, it's good to have that real depth of knowledge. But when it comes to being valuable in the world, you also need to have very broad skills and broad understanding. And especially when it comes to growing a business, you've got to understand so many different aspects of. So experience is absolutely where it's at. And I think you and I have been running businesses for a long time now, and you learn as you go what works, what doesn't work. You invest in things that don't pay off, you invest in some that do. But yeah, the 10 years that I've been building my own business, I had got to the point where I was very comfortable that I've earned my position as to be able to speak with authority on the topic of marketing, because I've done oodles of marketing courses from all the gurus, and
Yeah.
I know the stuff, I know the systems, and I've applied them, and I've seen when it works and when it doesn't. But then that one person to say, who are you to speak on the topic? And then all of that self-confidence just dissolves away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confidence is definitely a house of cards, and it doesn't take a lot for most people for that house of cards to tumble.
Mm, yeah. In fact, one client was sharing on our mastermind group last week that on Instagram, somebody posted a comment that was, it's hard to know how it was intended, but it really shook her, and the house of cards came down, and they challenged her on something, and she was already feeling a bit fragile, and it just burst her bubble for a good couple of weeks. And yeah, it does. It's confidence is such, imposter syndrome is such a huge thing. And
It
yet,
definitely is.
mm, so how does your imposter syndrome manifest, Sam?
Oh gosh. This is the tricky thing with imposter syndrome, I think, that you never know what is going to spark it, what's going to set it alight, and what's going to have you curled up in a ball in the corner. And here we go again. You know, was my week last week where everything had me in tears. Everything. It almost to the point, and I don't know whether this is a menopausal thing or not, but I just had a week where I was like, every time I was alone, I couldn't help myself. I was just crying about everything. And business is one of those things, because I think saying, "Oh, I'm a business coach," I feel immense pressure to have everything figured out. And I feel like I should be super successful and know how to do everything. And the truth is that I don't think anyone can say that that's true, simply because business changes so quickly, particularly, when we're talking about how to use technology in business and how technology has accelerated everything. Trying to keep up with that galloping horse is very, very difficult. And anybody who says that they're a master and constantly ahead of the game, I don't know how they're doing it. I really don't. I know that I don't have all the answers, and that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes because I feel like I should.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And you and I were talking about inviting a podcast guest on. So we came across this great book called The Thought Leaders Practice. And it resonated with both of us. And I think it will resonate with a lot of our clients as well, because it's about the two different types of businesses. The traditional one where you build a team, think of any support service like IT or law or any of those traditional business services where you set up a business, you have to employ staff, you deliver the service, you issue invoices, you get paid. It's heavy in overheads, heavy in number of people running the business, low profit margins. What else was it? And it's a very generalist service that you could sell on afterwards. So that's a traditional business model, which most business coaching is focused on helping those businesses. However, a thought leader practice is where it's all based around the founder. So who is either a speaker, a trainer, an author, a coach, a mentor, a facilitator. They're all those roles, and the business is built around the founder. You can't on-sell it because you can't, when the founder retires, that's it. But very low overheads, potentially high revenue. Like the book is actually stepping out how you can get from a white belt to a black belt, which is from 120,000 a year up to $1 million a year. And very different type of business. And so you and I were saying, hey, well, actually, no one's ever explained it to us in that way before, that there's these different types of business, and we are actually thought practice businesses. We're not the traditional model. And most of our clients are as well, because they're purpose-driven, they're passionate, it's about them and their ideas and changing behaviors and impacting the world. And we thought, well, let's invite this author onto the show because it would be so good to talk to him. And, we had the opinion, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so, Sam, you went off and filled in the application.
Because I'm very brave when I'm not on my own.
And then what happened, they came back with all these questions asking about the size of our podcast platform, which is quite new. So our platform's still small and growing. And it triggered all our imposter insecurities again, because then all of a sudden, who are we to invite this famous person onto our little show?
And kind of, as much as we love doing this podcast. And so the questions that were asked are not things that have been on our radar. We've just been doing the show and plodding along and talking from the heart every week and sharing, and having to answer those questions forced us to look at some of the numbers, and straight away it was like, it's like when you have a baby and you've got the baby book that you take and you've got to get all the milestones checked off, and you freak out if your baby's not doing certain things for 2 months and 4 months. I felt like that was what we were doing with our podcast today. It was like, what are the benchmarks? What are the milestones? Should we be at this level, or are we behind, or are we doing really well? We don't know. It was scary. And then to have to communicate, we don't have, 1 million downloads on our podcast. We're only a few episodes in, and you're probably used to being on podcasts that have 1 million downloads. So
Mhm.
Definitely feeling the imposter syndrome there.
Yeah. And yet it didn't stop us. We still filled out the application and we put all our social platforms in there. You put our, to show that we have a platform. It might not be as big as what he's used to again. But again, when these people, and his whole premise is do great money doing what you love. What's the promise? It's do work you love with people you like the way you want. And he's very purpose driven. It's clear. That's why he's developed this thought practice model. And so, yes, while it might not pay off in terms of revenue for him to come on this podcast in particular, there's still the impact is huge though. Like how it elevates our thinking and that of our audience, and it puts I do a lot of free speaking gigs. I'm doing another one this afternoon. I did one, I do a lot of free stuff, and people always say, "Oh, you should be paid for that." And yes, I do monetize at times, but I also believe in sharing your message um, for impact as well. So maybe I need to shift my mindset around that. But you just never know what comes out of a free speaking gig. It always elevates you in some way. It gives you new connections. It's brand building. And yeah, I'm sure there are, in this new mastermind that I'm part of, that I was saying I have, invested in quite heavily. I'm sure they will be saying you need to monetize. Make sure you're always monetizing whatever you're doing, to change to go from you and I were saying within a year, not quite at white belt yet, which is the lowest on their revenue ladder, which is 120,000 a year. And so we've got a long way to go and each level on the revenue ladder requires a mindset shift. And so every level of business requires a mindset shift, doesn't it? So,
Yes, it does.
perhaps moving from yes, I'm willing to do free speaking gigs to my speaker fees 5,000. Thank you very much. So yeah, elevating your thinking is required, but it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is a very tricky one. Yeah. And I this reminds me of another interaction I had. Speaking of paid speakers, the networking group that I'm a part of, we have our AGM coming up, and we were searching for a speaker of some prominence. So we were going to invest in getting a speaker to really deliver something power packed at our annual general meeting for women's networking. And in that search for somebody, many people were out of our price range for the networking organisation. But I did reach out to somebody that I follow on social media who I know is a speaker, but I'm a fan of theirs on social media. So again, Kate, I was brave and I was like, you know what? What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to
Yeah.
ignore me, or, they're going to say, thanks, but no thanks, please go away. So typed out a little email and said, we're looking for a speaker, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure if you're going to be in our budget, whatever, and sent. And I have been writing back and forth with that person now to see how we can get them down here and all that sort of stuff. But oh my goodness, I noticed that when the email came back to me, the question was asked, "What's the budget?" And so I had to share what our budget was. And she came back and she said, "Well, we can work with that. Let's talk some more." But it occurred to me after I got that email, I was like, I wonder what her speaking fee actually is, because I wonder if it was a lot less. And she's just like, "Whoo, thank you very much."
Yeah, yeah, quite possible.
Yeah, yeah. But and that was just through social media.
Mm-hmm.
From
Mm-hmm.
following her on social media, like bang, she could have landed this speaking gig.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. And so you and I have noticed, getting to that first 120,000 in business is does require time and effort and knowing what you're doing. And it is the reason why 85% of small businesses fail, because it's not easy to get to that point. And even if you're generating that amount of revenue, the amount you're having to invest back into the business to get there, whether it's advertising or marketing or other business, whether it's mentoring, it's all about the profit you take home. And that's what we tend to measure our success on, isn't it? When,
It is. Yeah.
when your partner's asking, so how much are you contributing to the household? And yeah, while there is so much to be proud of, and of what we've achieved and where we're at, and how we're helping other people through that valley of death to the other side to sustainable growing profit, it's still, business building is the hardest personal growth journey, because we as a society attach our value to what's coming into the bank every month or week. And when you're in the growth phase of a business, trying to get to that first 120K, it triggers all your insecurities around, I'm not enough because I'm not hitting the multi six figures yet, or I've been doing this for a while now. Why am I not hitting the $1 million mark yet? Or
Yeah. Yeah. I saw some statistics recently that said that the average coach only makes 50,000 a year.
Yeah, that's in his book, actually. Yeah, that's right.
There you go. That's probably where I heard it. I'm sure I've, how sometimes you'll read something and then it appears in your social media feed, because I'm sure I've seen it in more than one place.
Mm.
And it got me to thinking, even the programs that you and I have been members of, not programs we've delivered, but programs that we've ourselves invested in. And I want to ask if this is true for you, because when I've invested in a program, the first thing is that I get embarrassed to say I'm a business coach, because, again, I feel like I should have this stuff figured out. But, then when I manage to flip that imposter syndrome over, I have to realise that, like I said earlier, you can't have it all figured out because things change too quickly. You've constantly got to be learning what's out there, what's new, what's working, what's not. But the other thing is, how many times have we invested in programs that haven't worked for us, and you are sitting in a group of people and you're sitting there wondering, is this not working for anyone else, or am I just the big loser of the group and it's not working for me and everyone else is really successful? And you kind of fade into the background and slip out the back door because you're embarrassed that the program you invested in didn't work for you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then I think, well, is this the coaches that are stuck on 50 grand? Is that because they're just burning through people because their programs don't work, or like what's happening there?
It's a really good question. And I've actually stopped doing any of those programs. I don't think I've done one for years now. I invested in business mentoring 1-to-1 last year because I knew I needed to elevate thinking. And then now I'm investing in this mastermind group, which is all $1 million business owners, which is definitely elevating my thinking, and all elevating my thinking and triggering massive imposter syndrome at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, why am I hanging out with these people? Not even there yet, but they're giving me this opportunity to participate. So I'm going with it. But I haven't done one of these group coaching programs for years because, like you said, I got so tired of investing big money in these programs and not getting nearly as much as they promised you would get out of them. And I'm not offering any of those programs myself either now, because I don't believe that they can get all the results they promise. And maybe that's just my experience, but I cannot bring myself to pitch a program that pretends to solve all these problems in a group. And I know coaches want to do group work because it's more revenue in less time. But I'm yet to find a powerful coaching group that has actually really delivered big results for the money that you invest. And therefore, I don't feel comfortable offering something like that. Because to me, the magic happens in one-to-one mentoring of someone's specific situation. So they come to you and they're like, I'm here, this is where I'm at. And I know exactly, I can say, right, well, this is what you need to do to get here, and let's work on that. And then so it's custom. There's no sort of one solution that fits every business. And therefore, now I run my online mastermind group, which is a subscription fee of 110 a month. So it's not expensive, but it's a support structure for people who want to have discussions with other business owners. And it's scalable, so I can grow that, and it's good recurring monthly income. And then I just do one-to-one work and consulting, setting up marketing systems for people. The idea of going back and offering a program, to me, I just have not, I've had massive resistance around it, even though I know it can be a great revenue generating thing. I've experienced how hard it can be to promote and sell into one of those programs, as you and I have experienced many times, and how hard it is to run them and actually get results for the people in the group in a way that feels really genuine and authentic. So, yeah, I don't know whether we're going through a phase. Is it just me that's pulling back on investing in these big coaching programs that promise the world? Or is everyone doing that? Or are there still enough people out there starting and growing businesses that jump into these programs? I don't know the answer to that, but I personally can't.
It's tricky.
I can't participate in them anymore, and I don't want to offer them anymore either.
No, see, this is fascinating. So I'm just developing and pulling together the final pieces of a program.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want people to be part of my program and not get results and be the me in the group that slips out the back door because they're too embarrassed to say it's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the difference is that my program isn't one pathway. So just because these group programs rely on you to follow a path, do step 1, do step 2, do step 3, do step 4, and you will be successful. No problem, except when those stepping stones, when that pathway isn't in alignment with your values. And
Exactly.
that's the problem that I've had with programs I've invested in,
Yes.
is that I've said, I know that I don't want to operate this way. And they're like, yeah, no, that's all good. And then you get in there like, hang on a minute. I said I didn't want to operate like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really frustrating. So I think it's not a smorgasbord as such, because that's too overwhelming. But I've never been a believer that there is just one way to do things and that one way suits everybody.
That's right.
So I think my program is about exploring the different ways you can do things to find the right way for the individual person, so the individual can have success.
Interesting. So what's the program called, Sam?
Oh, it's Business Superstar. So I did have, I've cheated a little bit, but kind of not, because I did have 3 separate programs and I didn't like it. It's like all 3 programs were stepping stones, like, because this bit here is good for when you're starting out and then this bit here is good for when you start making some money. So I've just smashed it all together. I've put it into one program and I've called it stages, and you kind of graduate from one stage to the next as your business grows. Because like you say, through different stages of business, you need different things. So there's no point in teaching you how you go about building a team and things like that when you haven't got a product on the market yet, when your service isn't out in the world. So stage 1 is let's just get you out there. Let's just start there.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think
I've gone down the group path because one-on-one mentoring And this is where I'm stuck too, because I've been concentrating on doing one-on-one work. However, the price point for one-on work is an interesting quandary to have, because you don't want to undervalue what you do. So you're at a certain price point. But then the people that you want to serve are not generating the revenue and don't have the funds to pay that price point. Where I get stuck is, and you'll know this, Kate, is the psychology behind pricing is that if you are cheap, therefore you mustn't be very good.
Yes.
So if I were to drop my one-on-one pricing to a price point that people could afford, they're straight away going to go, well, she can't be that good. She doesn't charge very much.
That's right. Yeah.
Ah,
Yes. Yes, that's right. And there's
so here's where we get stuck.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right. And you're right. One-to-one mentoring alone is not sustainable, and you're capped at your revenue generation, and you need to be charging a premium for that one-to-one service if you're going to, progress up the revenue ladder. Yeah, it's an interesting, and this is why a lot of business coaches don't deal with startups for this exact reason, that they don't have the cash flow yet to be able to afford the quality business mentoring. And so it is you and I have chosen a tricky space to play in, which, startups, then it's a tough market. And even, you and I are both members of the Small Business Coach Directory in Sydney,
Yes.
which is Australia wide. And the guy who runs that has said, "Oh, fantastic, because we don't have any startup coaches. They're all business coaches that say they want only established clients so they can charge their premium price." And then it's this real, so you start thinking, am I the only sucker that's trying to make a business out of, helping startups? But you've got to go where the passion is, where the excitement is, where I get so much satisfaction from seeing people take an idea and translate it into reality. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it's a marathon, and not everyone sticks it out and gets there. But when they do, it's so rewarding. And I feel like in terms of impact, that's what I love. I feel like that's really purposeful and meaningful, because what you and I are doing is helping someone take an idea and make it a reality. Whereas if they don't get that help or support and they flounder and fail, then that's not good. We need more innovation and creativity and different, in the marketplace. And so it's a tough, and this is what the purpose-driven people we always run into. It's like, yeah, I really want to do this because it feels aligned with my values, with my soul, and yet the business world is telling you can't make money out of it. But in my experience, when you're in alignment, it does flow. Like I'm sort of in a fear space at the moment because I've made some big investments, and it's a natural response to go, what am I doing? But for the last year, I have experienced flow when I get in real alignment with, this is who I want to help, this is how I want to work. And the flow does come when you've got that alignment with your values and your morals and your ethics and your passion. So it is a tricky one. And getting to that first 120,000, you and I know, Sam, we get all the clients coming to us and saying, right, so I'll work with you if you can guarantee me I'll get to 100,000 to six figures in the first 12 months, and you're saying, I can't guarantee you that, because it depends where you start. It depends how hard you're prepared to work, to build your platforms, to build your offerings, to get out there and network. And I can't promise you'll get to the first six figures in 12 months. You might do, and many businesses have, but they've usually got an existing network and established reputation in that field. They're not completely pivoting and starting something new. That takes 3 to 5 years if you're being really realistic. And so I think staying true to your path is so important, but being in alignment, doing work that feels really good, but at the same time elevating your thinking. So it's quite a difficult. There's a lot of interwoven factors there that are sometimes contradictory, aren't they?
Yeah. And I think as long as people understand that that there are none of us, even the most successful, you think about the big stars in the business world, nobody has had a smooth ride of it. And we have to kind of detach ourselves from what we see online, and we have to understand that, personally, and like I say, like my week of tears last week, everybody goes through times where they feel like they're in flow, they're on top of it, they're on fire, everything is working, until you get that booking system that's not working, or that email sequence that's not triggering, those little things that bring you right back down to earth. In business, I think the main thing is to focus on making a series of decisions that every time you feel like that big foot has just squished you like an ant, that you're going to be able to just get up and get back to where you were, back to into that flow state, and back into that abundant state of mind, and back into that having that can-do attitude. You just got to not to not feel it when you're down, but not to stay feeling it when you're down.
Yeah. And we've mentioned this before, but every big shift for me in business has been around letting go and trusting. And as soon as I do that, it starts flowing again. It's so hard to do in the moment when you're in fear and feeling like you need to control and make things happen. But energetically, when you let go and you say, you know what, I've been here before. I've been in this place where I've thought I'm going to go bankrupt. This is the thing that's going to kill me. and somehow miraculously we keep rolling, keep flowing. Something happens, like a tax return comes, or there's and you have to, as a business owner, I believe, develop that trust and really drop into it. It doesn't, but again, it's a fine line. It doesn't mean you can slack off and not be smart and focused in what you're doing, right? So you do need to constantly be looking at elevating your thinking, implementing the smartest strategies you can, like leveraging your time, automating, all those things you still need to do well. But at the same time, you need to trust that the universe has your back, and that's when the flow comes in. Yeah, very tricky tightrope to walk between the fear and the trust.
I'm listening to an audio book at the moment, and I haven't finished, but I would love to do an episode on this book soon. And it's called Unfuck Your Brain. Have you read it?
No, I've heard about it, but I haven't read it.
I'm listening to the audiobook, and I love it because, it's not often that you hear someone who is a doctor talking like she's, just the everyday person that you're going to see at the pub. I mean, she's American, but, she's just the person next door, and, she's dropping F-bombs all over the place and just talking like she's not. It feels very unedited, the way she talks. She's not guarding herself in any way, but her simple explanations of the way all of this stuff floats around the different parts of the brain are brilliant, and I love it. So I actually, because there's so much content in this book, I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those ones I'm going to have to listen to it 3 times for me to get it to sink into my brain. It's funny, when I was in high school, I used to go and do homework at my oldest brother's house. He's 14 years older than me, and I just worshipped him. And whenever I had science homework or anything that was a little bit academic, I would go up to his house and he would help me, and he would make everything so exciting and so simple. And he told me that in order for me to remember anything that I was learning, I need to read it 3 times. Everything in life, just 3 times you need to read it. So I was listening to this book and I was like, I'm going to have to listen to this 3 times because she's talking about all the different little sections of the brain and how they are connected and how they communicate and how they affect each other. So that's going to be a 3-time book, that one. But fascinating, absolutely fascinating what our brains are doing. And I'm fascinated simply because I'm working with so many women who have ADHD, which of
Mhm.
course is affecting the executive function of the
Mhm.
brain. And her explanation of executive function and the limbic system and all of those sorts of things is right up my alley. I think I must have been a brain surgeon in a past life, or maybe that's coming up for me. I don't know.
And what is it though? The unfuck your brain. What's the main premise of that? How does one unfuck their brain? I'm curious.
Well, I haven't got that far yet because at the moment, I'm just listening to her explain the brain. But the premise of the book is to not only understand what I was saying to you earlier, not only understand what's going on, but understanding that leads to how do you then take the next step to unfuck it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. And we've all got these deep insecurities that get triggered. And I think that the
Yeah.
fact that, yeah, our society is so linked to, the money side of things as a measure of your worth,
Mm-hmm.
which makes
Yes.
it very challenging, starting, growing a business from the ground up, which you and I on our second iteration this time around as coaches. So being through that journey, doing it again, and you have to have such a strong sense of belief that you have something valuable to contribute. You have to go back and read
Yeah.
your testimonials to remind yourself that big impact on people. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this might be a stretch, but this is where my head's gone to. Being a business owner, if all you're doing is associating your worth with money, then you've enslaved yourself. Because isn't that slavery? Is just selling yourself for money, and what you can do is only assessed by monetary value.
Mm.
We're so much more than that. All
Yeah.
human beings are so much more than just the dollars that we can earn.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet our society is set up in a way that money is what makes the world turn. So you know, it's true what you just said, but we need to pay the bills and we need to do the shopping and
Yeah,
so
we do. But
yeah.
Kate, I've been involved in some service exchanges, which I think has been a really wonderful experience as well,
Mm. Mhm.
where I've exchanged a coaching session for something that the other person is, and there's no financial exchange, there's a service exchange there. And I think that's a really interesting thing to do as well.
Absolutely, and I have done that in the past. Yeah, I've got to the point though where even if we're doing an exchange, I still ask that there's a monetary exchange because I want
Mm,
my books to reflect the work I'm doing. So
interesting.
yeah, even when it's a flat out, okay, I pay you 1,000, you pay me 1,000, I'll invoice 1,000, they'll invoice 1,000 back. And
Mm,
there's no,
yeah,
but I want and need, I feel, or is it that I need to justify? I don't know. I need my zero account to reflect the amount of revenue that I'm getting through the business, even if it means I'm expending at the same time. I just feel big. Maybe it's because I'm so, you know, on the path to I need to, I'm working with a business mentor and he's looking at your numbers. It's like I need to show that I've got cash flow coming through decent cash flow coming through the business. So it's an interesting one. I did used to
is
barter.
that the purpose of your work with this mentor though?
Well, he's helping me. He's very numbers focused, and
Yep.
so yeah,
And
that's
that
where
you obviously wanted that or you wouldn't have decided to work with him.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm,
So I am absolutely caught up in the money driven side of things, but in terms of um, that's what I consider to be a measure of my progress.
mm.
And so getting his help to help me map out, okay, if I want to double or triple where I'm at now, what's the pathway to get there? How do I have to think differently? What do I have to do differently?
Yeah.
Um,
But here's the difference, Kate, between your money and your aims for revenue and things like that and another business owner. And I think this is a very big difference. And this is where we're going back to the two different types of business owners, where we've always known very, very clearly that we want to work with business owners who are all about impact. We know that it takes money to be able to pay for the impact. So I'm curious to know, when you reach these revenue targets and more importantly, when you reach these profit targets, that you're generating an income that you feel is what you want to be earning. What is it that you want to do?
Sorry, Sam, what was the question?
That's all right. What is it that if you were earning $1 million a year, what is it that you would do? What would you do with that money? Where is the impact going to lie for you?
Yeah, for me, it's all about. Sam, can we pause just one moment?
Yeah.
Can I pause? Not sure. Oh, just one moment. We're going to have to edit this out. I'll be right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so from 50 minutes to 52, I'm going to need to edit. But the question was, so what would I do with the money if I'm making the $1 million? So for me, it's all just about financial freedom, the ability to make choices and to be able to travel or do the things, to not have to worry about, to have the freedom to do the things that make your heart happy. That's for me what it's ultimately all about. Yeah. How about you, Sam?
Oh gosh, I would definitely be traveling around the world, but Kate, if you and I were doing $1 million together, we could travel together. But I would love to be able to travel to third world countries and spend a few months working and helping to build those environments up. And that's not to help them. That I feel like this is a very selfish motivation, but people that have less have a joy in them that we don't have while we're striving for money.
So true. It's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have actually talked about this before,
We
where
have.
the happiest cultures like the Balinese, the Paraguayans in South America, who have so little and yet are so happy,
Yes. Yeah.
is genuinely content.
Yeah. So I would like to go and be of service to those communities and just soak up the joy for a little while.
Yeah. You've raised a really good point, though. We get so caught up in this striving of this, I'm not there yet. I need to invest more to be more. I'm not worthy. And yet, what if we just dropped all that and we're like, I'm
Mm.
actually doing really well every day. I'm on the journey. I'm helping people daily. I'm doing good. This is great. Like, you know, it's
Yeah, yeah.
to help you strike that balance between I'm enough and I'm doing good work in the world with between that and also striving and wanting to do better and earn more. Very delicate balance to find, isn't it?
It is. It is very much so. I always, even when I was young, my parents would buy Tats Lotto tickets. I don't buy lotto tickets, but I remember my parents used to buy lotto tickets, and periodically there'd be the conversation around what would you do if you won Tats Lotto, and when we were little, it was like $1 million. That was like mind blowing money. It's not a lot of money now, but even when I was younger, it was always this thought that if I was a millionaire, then I wanted to have a school that would, and I wouldn't have a school, but I would like to have a scholarship where people who had brilliant ideas or people who had the capacity to achieve in whatever field they had this, gift in, that I would pay for them to then explore that and live that life
Mm,
as like a
beautiful.
scholarship. But because I always think that child that is in that very poor home that doesn't get to do well at school and doesn't get to stay at school and things like that, or were they the person that was going to cure cancer? Were they the person that was going to cure the common cold? And they were never afforded the opportunity to explore and excel.
Mm,
So, the next Mozart or Bach, is the child that is sleeping in a car with their mum because they're homeless and they're
and
never
even,
sitting in front of a piano or a violin, never getting to touch a violin. They
mm,
could have been something amazing, and the world has missed out on that.
yeah, and even if they don't become something amazing, it just the fact that they're given opportunities to grow and become the best
Mm.
version of
To
themselves.
be, to be the best them they can be.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. Yeah.
I get so I love watching all these TV shows and the stereotypical, like corner boy, and the only way out of the neighborhood is to be a drug dealer and all of that sort of stuff. And I'm like, this is the world gone wrong. This is the
Mm,
world gone wrong. When
mm,
the only way out is to be one person.
mm. Oh, this has been a really fascinating conversation. We have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope this has been helpful to people to hear some of the struggles that you and I still deal with on a daily basis. Imposter
Yeah.
syndrome is real for, I was speaking to a great business coach last week, a male who he said I triggered imposter syndrome in him
Oh,
when
really?
yeah, when he saw all my social media and how I was doing, and he said, and you've got a really good reputation, and I just felt like a total fraud, next to you, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's crazy. Yeah, and so I think it's just a reminder that we all feel like imposters, and
Yeah, we
it's
do. We do.
yeah, and it's just making the decision to show up every day and do your best and be your best, and that's enough.
Mm.
And actually, what you said about those people not having much and being happy, we do need to remind ourselves of that, about striving for more is not where the joy is at. It's about appreciating and really being grateful for what you do have and connecting, being present
Yeah.
and mindful, and that's where the joy is. So mm,
Yeah. I think I've shared this before, but I've started talking to my clients about this concept as well. When they, when imposter syndrome is showing up for them, which is regular. But I ask this question, and it's not my question, it is somebody else's question. But my question is, and this is a brilliant, brilliant question to ask yourself when imposter syndrome is present, is what benchmark, what level, what piece of paper, what is it that I need to have achieved in order to not be the imposter? So if you're sitting there right now going, I'm not good enough, unless you can articulate at what point you will be good enough, this is going to be a recurring problem.
Mm.
So you've got to draw a line in the sand for yourself.
That is so interesting, because even Google reviews, Sam.
Yes.
I had set my target for 20 a couple of years ago. I hit 20, and because that was going to be my target, that I was had a good reputation. I've got good, number of people. And then as soon as I hit 20, it's like, no, I need 30. And then, and then it's like, okay, I need 30. I hit 30, and now I'm like, I need 40, because then that shows I'm really doing well. And I hit 40 recently, and now I'm like, no, I need 50. You're so true. It just never ends.
No. So you need a hard line for yourself, and when you cross it,
you have
celebrate
to be okay.
and be okay. That's it. Now I've got the evidence, because this is about providing evidence to yourself.
Yeah, that'll be so interesting. So I'm going to set the target for 50 and make myself, because it takes a long time to get there, doesn't it? Google reviews are like extracting blood from
reviews
a
are hard to get.
Yeah.
Except for the bad ones.
Oh, yeah. But, it'll be interesting to see if that's then that you can then be okay with enough. And when we hit the white belt, on the revenue ladder, and it's like, okay. And even he says in his book, because the average salary of a coach is 50,000, if you hit the 120,000 on the bottom of the revenue ladder, you are doing amazing,
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just about tweaking and really optimizing and leveraging to go up the ladder. But if you can get to the bottom rung, as you and I said, we're going to jump on that bottom rung and just swing on it with joy. And then eventually try to climb up it by becoming, practice leaders, thought leaders. At what point is it enough? And I think that's a really good thing to point out. I think there's a certain level of salary that you want to pay yourself that feels good, that feels like a really good goal. And once you get there, you should be happy. And anything above that is a bonus. And you do it for the fun and the love and the impact and so on. So I think it's been a really good message.
I'm reminded, I'm going back a couple of years now, but I'm reminded of a time where you and I both sold a $20,000 coaching package each.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. And how cool is that? But I remember how I felt after I closed that sale, after I got that client. Do you remember how you felt?
Ecstatic, but also like, man, now I have to deliver this work. Now I have to deliver.
I felt exactly the same. I was absolutely thrilled, and I was so excited to be working with this client. But yeah, that feeling of, oh my God, like I need to so over deliver on this.
And I think you and I both did. Yeah, we were coaching 4 times a month on that package. Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, there was such a mixture of joy and fear. It's like, oh my God, I'm terrified. I have to now be worthy of this.
Yes, and show that I'm worthy of it. Deliver results, and absolutely, yeah.
The truth of that, though, is that we had already shown we were worthy, or they wouldn't have bought for $20,000.
That's right. They already trusted me, and both became great clients, and the value was there, even just by showing up. Interesting, but because that was such a stretch for us to put that there, yeah. Yep. Well, I hope everyone listening realizes that, even when you're running, successful businesses, we all go through ups and downs. And at times I question whether I am successful or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a normal part of the journey. And I think as long as we stay loving what we do and I think being really focusing on being grateful and that surrender and the trust. And I've experienced it too many times now to know that it's true. When you let go and you trust and you keep showing up and you keep being smart, it finds a way of resolving itself. Things go wrong when you try to control and force and you go into fear and paranoia. It just, all the wheels fall off.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
You can't be locked into one thing and believe that the world has given up on you when that one thing doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you, Sam, for an amazing discussion once again, and hope this resonated with everyone. If it did, please give us a shout out or refer, ask someone to subscribe or check it out. And yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, help us and cure our imposter syndrome. Let's share the podcast around and get some more listeners.
Absolutely. And I have no doubt, that we're getting some great feedback, and you and I believe in doing this and the mission we're on. So onwards and upwards, and may we continue to impact and grow despite our little critter brains telling us we're not enough.